Alright guys, welcome to another video on Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade, and today I'm going to show you a burst strategy on how to beat Tower Floor 46. Now, previously I already created a guide on my channel which meant to beat floor 46 using 1 blue Gojo and also Mojito to stall the enemy out. The strategy absolutely works, but it's going to take you 40 turns, right? So completely understandable if some of you guys don't actually want to try that. So instead, this strategy is going to be focused on just burst down the enemy as quickly as possible, and that's kind of why you do need Hollow Purple Gojo for this to actually work. Now, in terms of the other members of the team, it's just going to be a standard supporter. So you have Gakuganji. In order to do debuff, you have two buffers in the form of Yaga and also Momo, and then you also have Kaito, who would also be used in order to use his ultimate skill, which once again is a buff. Now, the idea behind this is that basically the enemy, like those mobs, they are going to do really strong AoE poison and also disruption attack on turn 4, which is their skill, special skill. And when that happens, vast majority of the time it's going to be wiping out your main team lineup other than Hollow Purple Gojo, who actually have damage immunity. So your 3 characters are just going to die, and then when that happens, your Momo is gonna come in and then use her buff to make sure, sorry, this one, to actually then make sure you have enough buffs still stacked on your Hollow Purple Gojo for him to then nuke on turn 5. So that's basically the main idea behind the strategy. Now, in terms of skill level, they're all very high. You don't actually, I don't think you need it to be that high, to beat this stage. However, they kind of need to be that high in order to beat floor 45. So if you're already meant to beat floor 45, whatever skill level you use to burst down floor 45 is gonna also work for this stage, okay? So that's basically the idea behind the skill levels. Now, in terms of recollection choices, you definitely want non-standard and also unity. That's just mainly so that you are actually able to nuke on turn 5. Now, if you do not have both of them, then it's very likely that you would not have charged up Hollow Purple Gojo's ultimate attack on turn 5, and then you can only ult on turn 6. And if you only ult on turn 6, then essentially what's going to happen is you're going to get one less stack of buff from Gakuganji and also Yaga, because they would have already died on turn 4, etc. So basically you wanted to have them to buff or debuff on turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. So ideally you really want your Hollow Purple Gojo to ult on turn 5 to still benefit from all those 3 stacks of buff and debuff. So that's kind of what's quite important for you to have these 2 recollections in order to make sure you can actually ult on turn 5. Now, in terms of the other recollections on the other characters, this is where it gets there's a bit more customization in terms of what you want to do. Now, the one I opted in is basically, so first of all, the one on Yaga. So one of the recollection is definitely going to be either Death by Wasp or Sky's Connector, and the reason is basically, once again, if you remember, all of your team members are going to die on turn 4 from the enemy special attacks. And if they're already going to die on turn 4, what you actually want to have in terms of recollection is that you actually want to have a recollection which have 2 turns of ability, buffing ability, so that when you actually activate them, they are still able to be there on turn 5 when Hollow Purple Gojo is going to do his ult. So that's kind of what ideally you want to have Death by Wasp and also Sky is Connector as the 2 recollection in the main team, and then have another damage buffing one, for example this one, as the backup on Momo, so that you still have another recollection in terms of buffing damage once Momo is subbed in. Now, that is the ideal scenario. However, what I have realized is that sometimes if I basically just play Death by Wasp and also Sky's Connector in the main team, my Kaito may not actually have enough ultimate energy on turn 4 to use his ultimate attack, and you really want to use his ultimate attack because his ultimate attack once again is able to do a buff and lasts for 3 turns, and that's basically what allows your Hollow Purple Gojo to still benefit from that even after Kaido has been killed off. So you really want his ultimate attack on turn 4, and in order for that to be charged up, basically you either have to be somewhat lucky with the targeting in terms of the enemy actually hit you quite a few times for you to charge up by them, Otherwise, what I found to be a bit more consistent is actually basically using this Recollection, which then have the passive ability of filling up your ultimate gauge for all of your allies for 1 turn. So that's kind of the reason why I decided to play this in, not necessarily for the damage bar, but more for this ability. But like I said, if you do want to actually play around with the RNG just to see whether Kaito get hit enough times to charge up his ult naturally by himself, then the preferred Recollection on your main 2 characters on the main team is going to be Death by Wasp and also Sky's Connector. But basically, yeah, some kind of combination of those 3 Recollection is basically what you want on your characters. Now, in terms of the actual turn by turn strategy, so I kind of already mentioned you want to go for an ult on your Hollow Purple Gojo on turn 5, and because you would be using the ultimate attack from Kaito only from turn 4. On turn 1 to 3, you are basically free to do whatever you want on your Gojo, and I believe you can either do skill 1 or skill 3, it doesn't really matter, but skill 3 tends to be slightly better because first of all, it does give you a bit of extra break damage, which is always nice, and then the second thing is non-standard actually increase your curse technique stats, and skill 3 is the curse technique, where skill 1 is the physical attack. So preferably you want to use skill 3, okay? And then on turn 4, you want to use your debuff skill, so that on turn 5, your ultimate attack is going to benefit from the maximum amount of buff and debuff available, okay? Now, in terms of the skills on the other characters, because you're only ulting on turn 5, so you only need to use buff and debuff attacks from Gakuganji and also Yaga on turn 4. From turn 2, so that it can last for 4 times, all the way up to turn 5 when Gojo actually ult. And because you would be using skill 1 from Gakuganji on turn 1, you don't really want to use a buffing skill on Kaito straight away either, because if you do actually use it, then what's going to end up happening is that it will be activated before your unity comes in. So ideally, what you actually want to do is you want to do skill 1 on all 3 of your characters on turn 1, and then from the second turn onwards, that's when you'll be using the buff and debuff skills all the way until they're actually being killed off by the enemy special attack on turn 4.
相手の手加減はしてあげるよ。行くぞ。あ、見える。そうさの。集中。相手の動きを手加減はしてあげるよ。皆さんは前に集中を。授業を始めよう。はい。見えるかな。前。 手加減はしてあげるよ。皆さんは前に集中を。では教育の時間だ。少し痛いかな。悩ましい。今なら俺でも。手加減はしてあげるよ。呪連素術。では教育の時間だ。その程度は暗い。よもやこまさか。可愛くないやつばっかりね。舐められるのごめんだしね。それじゃおしまいにしようか。なるほど、そういうことね。挙式紫。やるぞ。まあ最強だからね。